Well, the U.S. space agency, NASA, is into the final hours of its countdown to launch the first astronauts to the moon in more than half of a century. The Artemis 2 mission will carry 3 Americans and 1 Canadian on a lunar flyby, setting a new distance record for humans in space. Liftoff is on schedule for later tonight from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
This is the last time a human set foot on the moon, over 50 years ago in 1972, the U.S. Apollo 17 mission.
I was rolling on the moon one day.
Along with more than 100 kilograms of lunar soil, the 3 astronauts also brought back the photo that changed how we see our blue marble. But the costs were astronomical, and with shifting political priorities, the moon program was cancelled, even though more Apollo missions had been planned. Now the space race is on again. Humans are heading for the moon as part of the Artemis program, a multi-billion-dollar series of missions led by NASA, but with major contributions from Canada and Europe. And they are not the only ones planning to send humans to the moon. China aims for a crewed lunar landing in 2030, and India plans to follow by 2040. After uncrewed test flights, the Artemis 2 mission is now sending 4 astronauts to fly around the moon.
During our mission, before our mission, after our mission, during Artemis 3 and missions beyond, all the way to Artemis 100, they'll know that not only have we been there in the past, but we actively go there. We send people there because we're humans that must explore.
The Artemis 2 mission is sending the crew on a 10-day journey. After orbiting Earth, the spacecraft will be propelled towards the moon and fly around it, 7,500 kilometers above its surface, before heading back home.
The crew along the way is going to be doing some additional, more detailed checkouts of the spacecraft. And then as we fly by the far side of the moon here, the crew is going to spend a day in lunar observation. So they're going to basically spend the day giving their observations on the far side of the moon, which hasn't been seen, parts of it hasn't been seen by human eyes before, so that'll be a great opportunity.
The ultimate goal of the Artemis program is to land humans on the moon's surface again, this time to stay. Water ice has been detected in craters near the moon's south pole, which could serve as a source of drinking water, making the idea of humans living on the moon far more realistic. There are plans to build a lunar village, a permanent human settlement to conduct science, mine lunar resources, and explore how we could live on another celestial body. A space station orbiting the moon was also planned as a gateway to its surface, and later as a stop on the way to Mars. But with recent changes to the Artemis program, its future is now unclear. Plans for the next mission have also been changed. Artemis 3 will now remain in low Earth orbit for future testing. Then Artemis 4 is now scheduled to return humans to the moon in 2028, after more than 50 years.
And we are joined here in the studio by my colleague Shashmitha Ramakrishnan from DW Science. So will Artemis 2 actually happen?
That is the question of the hour, primarily because the mission has been delayed so many times. It's really anticipated around the world that the mission will take off today. And NASA has guaranteed that there is an 80% positive weather conditions that would allow for the rocket to leave today. We never really know in rocket launches until the moment the rocket actually leaves the surface. So we will still wait until the very last minute. There could be delays, but at the outset, it seems like we would take off.
What's the point of the mission, and why are people now being sent to the moon?
Artemis is a stepping stone for us to get to Mars. So this would be our first experience with deep space flights. And if we can handle these kind of long journeys well outside the low Earth orbit where the International Space Station is currently located. When we go into deep space, we are at threat from different kinds of radiation, from the sun, cosmic radiation, and we don't know what this does to our body. So Artemis would help us explore deep space travel, and if we can at all survive it, and if our instruments can survive it.
What will the astronauts do during their flight around the moon?
The first 1 or 2 days, as soon as they get out, they're going to be testing the different equipment that's there. And then they would go on to test the life support machines, toilets, drinking water, which will also be used to rehydrate the dried food that they would take up to the space. And if everything goes as per plan, then they would start on the deep space journey. That would be the second part of their journey, where they would conduct different experiments, some on the human body. For example, how radiation affects the human body, what space does to, say, your immune system. They would do this by getting astronauts to spit into different equipment in space and then study their saliva for biomarkers. And then they would also study instruments that are designed to mimic the human organs. It's called Avatar. And they would study these chips that carry the bone marrow of these astronauts to see what space radiation actually does to the human body.
When will we see astronauts do, when do we see astronauts on the surface of the moon again?
Well, it's been over 50 years since we've last set foot on the moon as human beings. Of course, we've had robots come and go. Like last year, we had the Chandrayaan mission, which landed on the moon, and then there have been other missions which landed machines on the moon. But going back to the moon with humans, possibly after 2030s, and we're expecting this would happen with the Artemis 4 mission.
So sending people on a mission to Mars, you think that that's the earliest point then?
At the very earliest, we're looking at 2040s, but well, we never know what happens with space. There could be a rapid growth which shoots us off into Mars much earlier.
Sushmitha Ramakrishnan from DW Science, thank you so much.
Thank you.